As the son of a vicar, Arthur ought to understand the dangers of temptation, yet after stealing a stash of drugs and money from Ray, he has let temptation pull him into a shadowy world and push a wedge between him and his mother. It began with pocketing the bag, followed by a sharp-tongued argument with his mum Laurel that ended with her slapping him, then spiraled into him hiding the cash and splurging on treats bought with money that rightly belonged to April's family. His sense of right and wrong is now completely unbalanced. April Windsor soon sensed that something wasn't right and feared he was developing a taste for an extravagant lifestyle. Arthur brushed off her concerns, but privately he was relishing his dangerous step into Ray's world. Using the stolen cash, he treats himself to a flashy new phone and becomes so absorbed in his latest gadget that his responsibilities begin to suffer. Gabby is left having to step in and take a firm managerial stance with him. After a blazing row, the troubled teen rips off his apron and walks out, leaving Laurel racked with guilt and questioning whether she has failed as a mother. Laurel barely has time to steady herself before she catches Arthur hunting for his passport, intent on running away using his sudden wealth. He announces plans to move to Australia, and when Laurel demands to know how he'll pay for it, she discovers an envelope stuffed with cash. Furious, Laurel listens as Arthur admits he took the money from Ray's bag. As her anger flares, Arthur cruelly threatens that unless she lets him keep the cash, he will tell everyone she hit him. He has sunk to a shocking new low. Laurel crumbles as she realizes she is losing her son, who is now blackmailing her while desperately searching for the money she has secretly hidden. He pleads with her to hand over the cash so he can leave, but after he storms out, Laurel makes a choice that could permanently damage their relationship. Overhearing Marlon and Rona talking about their financial struggles, Laurel decides what she must do with the money. Kane is rocked by yet more crushing revelations in a new Emmerdale spoiler clip as his nightmare continues to spiral. At the beginning of 2026, Kane and Moira Dingle were caught up in the devastating Corriedale crash. Kane was taken to hospital after being shot, but while being treated, he was also hit with deeply unsettling news. A doctor informed Kane that a lump had been discovered and that further tests were required to determine whether it was cancerous. In the weeks that followed, Kane and Moira tried to stay hopeful, but before long, their lives began to unravel. After Joe Tate pressured Robert Sugden into planting ID cards taken from Celia Daniels' farmhouse at Moira's property, Moira was arrested on suspicion of human trafficking. D.S. Walsh believed Moira was involved in Celia's criminal activities due to their business connection. Moira fought desperately to clear her name, but as more details emerged, the situation only grew more dire. Following information passed on by Beowulf about refugee Anya, Ruby came to the horrifying realization that the young woman she had tried so hard to help the previous year was dead. She located the burial site and contacted the police. Ruby and Caleb Milligan watched as officers dug Anya's body out of a shallow grave, but they were stunned when a second body was uncovered alongside her. While Ruby struggled to process the horror of Anya's death, Caleb began to question how Moira could ever persuade Walsh that she had nothing to do with two bodies being buried on her land. Throughout all this turmoil, Kane was anxiously awaiting the results of his medical tests. He attended the hospital appointment alone a few days earlier, with Moira still in custody. He was told he had prostate cancer, and, staying true to form, Kane decided to keep the diagnosis to himself. He did eventually confide in Sarah Sugden, who had sensed that something was seriously wrong with her granddad. She has been a steady source of support ever since, though she worries his life would be easier if he opened up to others about his illness. Things are about to take an even darker turn for Kane, as a new video reveals the moment Ruby drops a bombshell. At Butler's, Ruby's sense of guilt intensifies when Kane speaks about how overwhelmed he feels. As he questions why the police seem more focused on who killed Ray Walters instead of who placed Celia and an unknown woman on Moira's land, Ruby can no longer stay silent. She admits to Kane that she was the one who contacted the police about Anya. The blow lands hard, as Kane realizes Moira would not be facing accusations of 2 murders if Ruby had never made that call. The prostate cancer storyline, Jeff explained, was created as the story of a man who doesn't usually express his emotions. Dealing with cancer is difficult enough, but the potential side effects of this condition can seriously affect men and their sense of identity. Being forced to talk about it and confront those fears is the direction we wanted to explore. He stressed that, running alongside this, the whole plot is a major love story centered on Kane and Moira. That was always at the heart of it, he said. It's about how they face these enormous challenges together. Moira being in prison, Kane being diagnosed with this illness, and just how severe it is. Emmerdale actor Joshua Richards has shed light on Beowulf's huge revelation next week, as the character is finally forced to answer for the death of Ray Walters. Bear was responsible for killing the notorious Ray while severely traumatized, following a period where he was imprisoned and exploited as a slave. In upcoming scenes, Bear makes the decision to turn himself in and admit what he has done, with the police set to charge him with manslaughter next week. Speaking about Bear's choice to confess, Joshua explained that his character operates with a deeply flawed sense of honor, feeling compelled to accept blame even though he was not fully aware of his actions at the time. He went on to say that Bear's mindset is very old-fashioned, believing that if he committed the act, then he must accept the punishment that comes with it. While that belief is misguided, Bear is convinced it is the right and honorable course to take. This confession naturally sparks concern for his son Paddy, who has been trying to protect Bear by covering up the truth. Joshua noted that Paddy is desperately attempting to keep certain details from the police and from Walsh, but that becomes increasingly difficult under intense questioning, where confusion can easily arise. He added that Bear's intention is to take full responsibility so that everyone else can be left out of it, but the police are skilled at catching people out and applying pressure. Despite Bear's vulnerable mental state, the investigating officer is described as particularly relentless, determined to wrap up the case and implicate as many people as possible along the way. Joshua explained that the officer's focus extends far beyond Bear alone, with Moira, Kane, Paddy, Dylan and others all falling under suspicion, as she is unwilling to settle for just one person being held accountable. Reflecting on Bear's mindset when he faces the manslaughter charge, Joshua said that Bear sees the taking of a life as absolute, believing one life must answer for another. With a very traditional outlook, Bear feels that even though the killing happened in self-defense, and while he was not in his right mind, effectively suffering a breakdown and close to insanity, he still deserves to face the consequences of his actions. Emmerdale airs on weeknights at 8 p.m. on ITV1 and is also available to stream on ITVX.